Okay, Chair, I'm handing the meeting over to you. We are now streaming live on YouTube.
Thank you, Amanda. Good afternoon and welcome to East Devon District Council's Virtual Audit and Governance Committee on the 18th of March 2021. I'm the Chair, Councillor Sam Hawkins. I'd like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming. All participants are here today taking part remotely, and as well as being live streamed, the meeting is being recorded. So please bear this in mind throughout, and may I remind you to be careful with your language. May I also remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We also reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who is disrupting the meeting by whatever means. And please turn off any telephone devices or put them to silent. As this committee meeting is dependent on an internet connection and a power supply, in the event of a breaking internet connection or power cut, please bear with us as we try to reconnect. After 15 minutes, if we're not able to reconnect, we'll consider the meeting agenda and reconvene at a later date. Please check the committee page on our website for details. Please make sure all microphones are muted when you are not speaking to avoid background noise. Keep points short and do not repeat points that have already been made, and do not interrupt. If you wish to comment, please raise your electronic hand and wait to be called. All councillors have been sent the agenda for today's meeting. Any members of the public who want to view the agenda can do so by visiting our website, www.eastdevon.gov.uk. We will now start the meeting by doing a roll call of committee members here present. Can you please now unmute your microphone, and when you hear your name, please confirm by saying present. When you confirm you're present, please mute your microphone again.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins.
Present.
Councillor King.
Present.
Councillor Bailey. Councillor Barrow.
Present.
Councillor Cahill. Councillor Gazzard. Councillor Hayward.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Hookway.
Present, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm you're correct today.
Thank you, Amanda.
Sorry, Amanda, I missed the register. I am here.
Okay, thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 1, public speaking. There are no members of the public registered to speak. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. If anyone has a comment on the set of minutes from the 28th of January 2021, please do this by raising your electronic hand. If I have no hands raised, I'll take this as an indication that you all agree the minutes of the previous meeting. On the basis I can see no hands, thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting are agreed. Agenda item number 3, apologies. I've got listed here Councillor Phil Twist and Councillor Jeff Cook. Amanda, are there any others you've received?
No, I've not received any more, thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 4 is declarations of interest, and this will be done by roll call.
Councillor Hawkins.
No, none that I'm aware of, thank you.
Councillor King. You're on mute, Councillor King.
Beg your pardon, and my phone's on. Yes, I have no interest, thank you.
Councillor Bailey.
None, thanks.
Councillor Barrow.
None, thank you.
Councillor Hayward.
None I'm aware of, thank you.
Councillor Hookway.
None, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 5, matters of urgency. There are none. Agenda item 6, confidential exempt items. There are no confidential exempt items which officers recommend should be dealt with in this way. On to item number 7, audit findings report from Grant Thornton, and I will hand over to Jackson Murray to present this item.
Thanks very much, Chair. So the report in front of you today, the committee's seen previous iterations of this report. It is fairly lengthy. Part of that is due to the reason that we're required to report a number of things under our auditing standards, so they have to be in there. What I was going to propose to do is take members through the report fairly briefly in terms of some of the key messages, and then open up to any questions following that. If I begin on page 10 of the agenda pack, the slide entitled Headlines, As committee members will recall, there were a number of items that were outstanding at previous committees, which is why we were unable to certify and conclude the 1920 audit previously. Pleased to say recently there has been some good progress on this, and the list of outstanding items now is very small. So there are only a couple of items left to conclude with management before we are in a position to issue our audit opinion, and the items are set out on page 10. I'm conscious that the statement of accounts and the letter of representation are on the agenda for later today. My proposal to committee members, once I've run through the report, and obviously subject to you wishing to decide to approve or not the accounts later on, if you were to approve the accounts and there were any additional findings that we needed to report to you before we issued our own audit opinion, my proposal is I'd do that via the chair outside of a formal meeting and circulate that information to all members of the committee. But I'm not aware or not expecting there to be any other significant adjustments to the 1920 accounts. So just wanted to set that out as a proposal. I'm conscious that will be discussed on a later agenda item as well. In terms of the key messages for the financial statements, you will see that subject to the satisfactory conclusion of those remaining points, our anticipated audit report will be unqualified, which hopefully is good news to the committee. There will be a change this year in that an emphasis of matter paragraph will be included. We've included these paragraphs in all of our local government audit opinions, and these draw attention to disclosures within the council's own financial statements. It's a national issue arising as a result of COVID-19, and all valuers, on the advice of RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, included material valuation uncertainty disclosures within their valuation reports of land and buildings. So this wasn't just local government, this was across the sector, across any valuations undertaken. So whilst this is a modification to our opinion, it's not a qualification. And as I said, this is something that all other local government bodies across Grant Thornton's client base have included in their audit opinions for 2019-20. In terms of our other key responsibility around value for money, we'd previously reported findings of that through prior iterations of our audit findings report. We concluded that the council has proper arrangements to secure economy, efficiency, effectiveness, and so again an unqualified value for money conclusion. Over the page, we've not exercised any of our additional statutory powers or duties. Expect to issue the audit certificate alongside the audit opinion once those final couple of items have been concluded. I suppose the other key thing to draw out, I suppose, is the impact of COVID and the fact that the audit has been completed remotely. It has taken a lot longer than I think any of us had imagined or hoped. But when we got to the 2019-20 year end, I think especially the finalisation of the audit has taken longer than we'd expected. I'm conscious there have been some challenges with capacity in the finance team, which has driven some of that. But appreciate both Simon and John kind of pushing this forward in the last couple of weeks to get us to a position where hopefully we will be able to issue an audit opinion imminently. So those are the key headlines. If I quickly canter through some of the other slides within the report. So page 14 of our agenda pack, we talk about some of the other significant audit risks that we identified. So I've already mentioned COVID. In respect of management override of controls, that's an assumed risk for all audits, not just public sector audits, but across the board. We raised a control recommendation in respect of journals in the prior year. We've raised that again, or in terms of the follow-up, we said that potential issue is still there in terms of journal authorization, but importantly, our testing in year did not identify any issues with any of the council's journal entries. In respect of pension and the valuation of the pension fund liability, one of, if not the largest number in the council's balance sheet, there were some classification adjustments made within the accounts to ensure that the numbers in the accounts matched the numbers provided by the council's actuary in their report, but no other issues were identified. And in terms of the valuation of land and buildings, I've already mentioned the emphasis of matter. The other area that we're just awaiting finalisation of is in respect of the valuation of the council's housing stock, the council dwellings. So in 1920, on advice from the district valuer, that the council themselves uplifted the valuation of council dwellings using an index that was supplied by the district valuer. So whilst we understand that in our view is against the requirements of the SIPFA code, and you'll see later in the report, we raised a red flagged recommendation in respect of this. Because the council did it themselves, and although the DV, the district valuer, was involved, there wasn't a kind of documentary evidence proof of that. We've engaged our own valuation expert just to review the index adopted to ensure that the numbers themselves are appropriate, because as you're all aware, this is a highly material number in the accounts. It's a very large number. It's a key estimate, and as we've discussed previously as well, it's of key focus to auditors and regulators at the moment. So that's the reason for that work still being ongoing. In terms of other points to draw out or other points to note, we're satisfied that the council is and continues to be a going concern. We're just awaiting final receipt of cash flow forecasts for 12 months post year end or post the date of our audit report to confirm that, but we're satisfied that the accounts have been and should be produced on a going concern basis. And page 22 of the agenda items, some of the other information we're required to look at includes the annual governance statement, and we've made best practice recommendation in terms of some of the reporting within the AGS to consider for future years. The value for money detail has been presented or reported to the committee previously. As I said at the beginning, we're proposing an unqualified conclusion, so I wasn't going to propose to spend lots more time on value for money. As I said, we'll take questions at the end. Page 28 of the agenda pack sets out the recommendations that we've proposed and management's response. So that red recommendation, as we said, we recommended that the council takes a full valuation performed by a qualified valuer for the 31st of March 2021. We also identified some items on the balance sheet that were historical and in our view should have been written off or should have been written off in line with the council's financial policies. And also that best practice recommendation in respect of the annual governance statement. And then following on, we report the follow-up on prior year recommendations. So the two we flagged as not yet addressed. One is the journals point that I just raised, but importantly, no issues identified, but there is a potential risk there. And the other around some of the changes that were made to the financial statements last year, and indeed this year there's been a number of adjustments to the financial statements from the original draft provided to us, and all of those adjustments are set out in Appendix C, so from page 30 of the agenda pack onwards. A couple of those adjustments also impacted on the prior year. So one of the adjustments related to the treatment of disposals, which we briefly discussed with committee at the November meeting, and that's one of the reasons we were not in position to sign the audit report at that point. The other relates to the classification between borrowings and overdraft of the overdraft that the council held. And there were some fairly large, some material classification changes on main statements and other notes. Some of the adjustments, especially that disposals adjustment we refer to on page 30, impacted on a number of notes throughout the financial statements because of the way that they all tie together. So that's one of the reasons that adjustment and the update of the accounts has taken both officers and ourselves a little bit more time to review. I wasn't going to propose to talk through many more of the adjustments. The only other two things I was going to say is there are two items that are remaining unadjusted in the financial statements on committee's agenda today. Both of those are immaterial to the audit, so we're satisfied that they don't impact upon the audit opinion. But you'll see in the letter of representation, which is the next agenda item, that there's a specific representation around those unadjusted items for committee to note. And then the draft wording of our audit report is in Appendix E from page 35 onwards. So I think I'll pause there and open up to any questions from members.
Thank you, Jackson. I think initially I'd just like to say thank you and well done to the finance team for getting us to the point where we've got a nearly complete audit. Obviously, with this year's not been great, and it's come out as an unmodified or unqualified audit report, which is obviously the best we can look to obtain. Anybody would like to add any comments of what's been presented so far? I can't see any hands. The only thing then I think, oh, I can see a hand. I spoke too soon. Councillor Barrow, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask about this land and buildings valuation? And I know it's quite a large figure in the accounts, but if that figure was, let's just say 50 million more or 50 million less, how would that affect our accounts other than it just being a figure in the accounts?
So it's a good question, and I'll be careful what I say whilst on camera. It wouldn't impact on any of the usable reserves of the council. So it doesn't have an impact on the council tax setting. It's reversed into unusable reserves due to statutory override. So I think probably Simon and other finance colleagues and practitioners would have a view on the amount of work that's expected on land and building valuations. And personally, I would as well. And obviously, there were comments made against this particular item in the Redmond review, and a suggestion that the accounts should be simplified. Unfortunately, until that happens, we have to audit to the SIPFA code, and we have to audit to auditing standards. So whilst it may be challenging at times to understand some of the value that all of this work adds in real terms, given there's no actual impact on council taxpayers, it is still a large number in the accounts, and we have to audit to those professional standards at the moment.
Okay, thanks. Because I do appreciate that in business, the asset valuation and the balance sheet is massively important to potential borrowing and so on and so forth. But to a council, it's less important, I'll say. And then for us to potentially have to spend lots of money on valuers and so on, when there is very little risk, I just feel that the code must maybe focused on other things rather than this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I can't see any other hands raised. Obviously, at the I can. Councillor King.
Yes, please. I'm sorry, I've been chasing things to find the detail to inform my question. But it's about IFRS 16, which is, I think, perhaps a significant change, perhaps more with other councils than ours, depending on how they've sort of leveraged their finances. And you've pointed out that you identified that the disclosure in relation to IFRS 16 was not included. What is your view about the prospects for that as an independent auditor for this council, or are you not equipped because it isn't included?
No, so I'm happy to come back on that. So the point was that we raised for the 1920 financial statements was there wasn't a disclosure around the impact or the potential impact of the new standard, or the fact that it was too early to tell what the impact could be. And under accounting standards, those are the two options. You either say this is the impact, or it's too early to say. So IFRS 16 was due to come into effect from 1st of April 2020. So the 2021 financial year that we're in was due to be the first full year that IFRS 16 was in place and the council would have to report under. That also meant that until the COVID-19 pandemic, the council would have had to have done a fair amount of work to set up the opening position from the 1st of April 20. A decision was taken fairly quickly after the COVID-19 pandemic that the implementation of that new accounting standard would be deferred for 12 months. And subsequent to that, it's been deferred again for a further 12 months. So it's not going to come into effect for the 21-22 financial year either. So I think it's probably safe to say at the moment, the council hasn't done sufficient work to fully understand the full implications of this. And you're absolutely right, certain councils may be impacted more, depending on how they finance some of their capital arrangements and how many leases they have in place. But I think it's probably safe to say, due to the deferrals, other things have quite rightly taken priority across the sector at the moment.
I think so, yes. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you. One of the things I just want people to have a quick think about is Jackson mentioned if there are any final changes between the audit report and today's report that he'd like to just sort of consult with me as chair rather than come to committee. I'm aware we don't have a meeting after today till July, so I'd just welcome a thought from someone else as I'm the impacted person there. It was wrong to agree it myself. Councillor Gazzard, please.
Yeah, apologies for being late, Chair. Yeah, I'd be happy to propose that. It seems sensible to me.
Thank you. Councillor Barrow, is that hand a seconding? Excellent. On that basis, as I'm not seeing other hands, I think we'll take that forward as a recommendation that if there are any further changes that they to the audit report, that they to be viewed in consultation with the chair of the committee, and obviously I'll undertake personally to refer to members when that has happened, just to keep everybody informed. On that basis, can we please use electronic hands, fingers, thumbs, whatever we're using these days?
So it's green ticks, please, Chair, or red crosses if you're against, and raise your electronic hand if you're abstaining. And I have 7 votes. That's unanimously in favour, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzard, did you need to cover any declarations of interest as following your joining, just while I remember?
Thank you, Chair. No, I've got none that I can think of at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. On to agenda item 8, and that is the letter of representation. I know obviously it's on East Devon letterhead, but I'm not sure who's presenting. Is that Simon or Jackson? But I'll let either of you dive in, please.
Well, I can introduce it, but Jackson could probably add. I mean, in terms of there's not a lot to introduce. It's a letter that's signed by myself and you, the chair, to the auditors, and basically makes a number of statements around how we prepared the accounts and what we've disclosed to audit. And it's a bit of an insurance policy, I think, for the auditors that we have told them everything that we should have told them. So it's for members to agree, and then we sign it off. Was there anything else to add to that, Jackson?
No, I think that covers it. It's standard representations within there. I've already mentioned that it refers to the 2 small unadjusted misstatements that were in our report previous item, and there's also a representation around those prior year adjustments as well that I referred to in our report. Other than that, standard wording, as Simon said, that's signed by himself and the chair of audit committee. Should or once the accounts are approved. I think the other thing just to point out is, again, because given we're in COVID situation, those signatures we're expecting will be electronic this year. So the only other thing is what would make sense is if the accounts, the letter of rep and our audit opinion are all dated the same date and signed on the same date, so we can do that electronically. All we would need from the council is for each individual who's going to be signing a document, so Simon, yourself and the chair and any other colleagues, just an email to say that you authorise the use of your electronic signature, because obviously we would normally be sat in a room and I could see that each of you were physically signing a piece of paper, but not quite possible in these times. So that's the only change to, I suppose, process this year.
Thank you. Councillor Rowland, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say a couple of words to echo what you said before, but it seemed an opportune time to say this. And wearing my finance portfolio hat and having arranged weekly update meetings with Simon and John, I'd just like to place on record my thanks to both of them for the amount of work that's actually gone into getting us to this point at the moment. because having spoken to them every week about this, I do appreciate how much work has been involved in the team. So thank you. If it can be recorded, thank you.
Yeah, I'd be happy for that to be minuted. Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would just like to echo Councillor Rowland's comments, because it hasn't been an easy year for everybody, and particularly for officers with accounts. I'm quite happy to move acceptance of the letter, Chair, if that helps.
Perfect. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Barrow. Happy to move this to a vote then. Green ticks, red crosses, or hands for abstentions, please.
Okay, for the benefit of those watching online, the vote is now taking place. And Chair, I have 7 for, that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is agenda item 9, statement of account for 2019-20, including the annual governance statement, and that is from the strategic finance lead, Simon Davey. Or John Sims.
It's actually going to be John if his IT is working. So if not, it will be me, but we'll try John if that's okay, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully you can hear me. I've got problems with my camera, so it would just be audio. If that's
no worries,
okay.
we can hear you.
Thank you. Yeah, so a short report just presenting the 2019-20 statement of accounts. A lot of what I was going to say has been covered by the external audit report and update from Jackson. But I would just add that obviously members received the first draft statement of accounts back in September, and the audit finding reports kind of picks up on what's changed between now and then. So that's in there. Also just wanted to confirm that the financial outturn position for 2019-20, as reported to Cabinet back in October, on the 8th of October, has not actually changed throughout the preparation of the accounts and this period of audit. So I just wanted to confirm that. So, and as Jackson has just said, the report is just requesting the approval of accounts, but the signatures on the accounts, the letter of representation, and the annual governance statement will be electronically at the same time as the audit opinion is issued. So other than that, I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you. So I'll open that up. Any questions? No, the only question I did have was on the recommendation. It's to adopt the 2019 statement of accounts and delegate authority to the chair to sign. Is it the section 151 officer that signs the accounts? I thought, but I'm happy to be corrected.
Yes, it is. This is the balance sheet. I'm trying to remember now. John, is there a signature there for the chair as well?
Yeah, it's definitely on the balance sheet. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is for both of us. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't want to be signing stuff I didn't need to. On that basis, then I'm happy to move the recommendation as put from the chair. And if we're happy to vote on that basis.
Okay, for the benefit of those watching online, the vote is now taking place. And Chair, I have 7 votes for, that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. On to agenda item 10 is the annual audit plan 2021 and 2022 and review of the internal audit charter. That's Alistair from SWAP, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'll just share my screen to make it easier to run through the report. Hopefully members can see that on screen now. So this is our annual plan and charter report. So there's 2 things to approve, which is the annual plan and the audit charter. I'll just run through the report briefly, just to give you a bit of background information. So the first thing here is audit committee members, as you should remember, obviously your role is to provide assurance to full council that governance, risk and control is working effectively in the organisation. You can gain assurance from many different sources, and one key source of assurance that you get is the independent assurance from your internal auditors, which is us. So in terms of putting this plan together, it takes into account a number of views. It's the views of the Audit Committee. It's our view to make sure that we're covering key risks that I need to ensure are covered to produce our annual audit opinion at the end of the year, and also the views of senior management to make sure that they're getting the assurance they require in their role and responsibility for running the organisation on behalf of the governing body. So this is roughly the sort of information that we take into account when we pull the information together. So it's making sure that everything is aligned to the corporate priorities of East Devon District Council and take all the views into account. We did send out an email asking for input from audit committee members, and you might remember that we did send out the SWOT's view on significant risks in local government. And this did feed into our risk assessment that we've got overall. And this is our risk assessment outcome for East Devon District Council. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are ongoing at the moment with digital transformation, the ongoing impact from COVID-19, and also the ongoing impacts from the risks around cybersecurity, GDPR, etc. So moving on to agenda page 51, this gives an overview of where our work falls. And I would draw your attention to the fact that we can't cover everything in any one year. So this is kind of showing where our work falls given what we've put into the plan this year in terms of where it aligns to corporate priorities and against our core assurance areas. So just to remind the audit committee, core assurance areas are those that align to the healthy organisation. And we need to make sure that we're covering these areas on a kind of 2 to 3 year rolling programme basis to make sure that the core of the organisation is running effectively from a governance, risk and control point of view. So overall, as would be expected, a lot of our work is falling in financial management, because obviously that's quite an important area, one of the important areas for the audit committee as well. And you can see that, again, we've got good coverage around risk management as we plan on doing some work around risk management in next year's audit plan and around procurement and contract management. The other areas are lighter, but have been covered in more detail in previous years. So moving down to the plan itself. So how is the plan going to work this year? There is a slight difference that whilst we've got an annual plan here in Appendix 1 for you to look at and approve and to make sure that you're comfortable with the areas we're covering, we are going to formalise the kind of review and in-year review process. So this will happen on a quarterly basis. And again, I'll be seeking the views of the audit committee to feed in on that quarterly basis to make sure what we're proposing to look at in the next 3 months is still relevant. There will be a rolling plan that will include all the areas that are on our radar. So that's not just what's in this report, but the stuff that we haven't brought in at the moment. And it will be worth audit committee members having a sight of that on a quarterly basis. And that at the moment has been uploaded to a portal on mod.gov that you will have access to. There are a few teething issues around access that will hopefully be resolved over the next few days, and then you should be able to see that documentation on there and see what else is on our radar that didn't make it into our first iteration of the plan. So this is what we're asking you to prove, Appendix 1. These are the audit names and a kind of a rough outline of the scope and what will be included in the plan. It shows when it will be delivered, so what we've outlined for Q1 and Q2. And how it ties in with your corporate register and your corporate outcomes. And again, as I said, it links back to our healthy organisational themes. We've also outlined what we're proposing to look at for the rest of the year in this table. But as I say, this is probably going to be subject to change, and I'll be welcoming your input throughout the year on what the priorities are as we get closer to those relevant quarters. So the second part that I was asking you to approve is the Audit Charter. So the Audit Charter needs to be approved by the Audit Committee on a regular basis. As it states there, this outlines the nature, role, responsibility and status of internal audit in East Devon District Council. This gives us part of our autonomy to go through and work independently and make sure that we have adequate access to people and information. There were a few tweaks to this charter compared to previous years, just based on the outcome of our external assessment on how we operate. The one change I would draw to your attention is, I need to make sure I'm on the right page. Yeah, sorry. So the one change is around here. This statement has been added into the charter from previous years, just so you're aware of that statement. So I'm happy to welcome some comments from members in terms of coverage of the audit plan and what we propose to look at in quarters 1 and 2, and if members had any views. I would just say a number of the audits in quarter 1 and 2 are some of the ones that have been pushed back from the previous year due to the new reviews that came in around COVID and the additional pressures that were faced in this current financial year. But happy to take questions from members.
Thanks, Alistair. I think it's great moving on to this rolling 12-month audit plan. It keeps it very much a livable, breathable document that evolves with the organisation that moves forward. Councillor Hookway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Alistair for his report. I just wanted to raise the issue on table B. I'm looking on my screen now. The Leisure East Devon LED. I noticed that has been scheduled for the 3rd quarter. In view of the fact that we are undergoing a review of LED and the leisure strategy, and we've got consultants in, is it perhaps worthy thinking that review be brought to the 1st quarter rather than the 3rd? What do people think? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hookway, Alistair, did you have any comments on that point?
Yeah, so the Leisure East Devon review was one that we originally had in quarter 4 for this year, but as you say, because of the external consultants coming in and looking at the strategy, it was agreed to push it back. It was a case of trying to find when the best timing would be because of that work that was ongoing and because of the ongoing impact around COVID-19. So I know through discussions that we had, we felt quarter 3 was more relevant, but I'm happy to have more input from members if they feel that there is more of a relevant time in quarter 1.
Thank you. I'm just following on hands now. To just keep it on this topic for the second, Councillor Gaza, was it a different topic or is it still on this topic? That's all.
No, it's on the issue that Councillor Hookway just raised. Yeah, I mean, I think the LED situation should be given a priority, if you like, bearing the situation that we find ourselves in with LED. So I would like to see it moved up moved forward, should I say, rather than leaving it to quarter 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor King.
Same view. I think it should be brought forward.
Perfect. And Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking through that listing, table A, of what's already scheduled for 1st quarter, what could be bumped. And obviously there's some very meaty topics there, some very important topics. But the only one that I think, arguably is sort of fairly a generic one that's not of this moment, is perhaps the accounts receivable debtors, because that's something that's going to be going on. It says there review again, as there were significant changes going on. So it is something that has been done. It's going to be reviewed again, but I suppose from all that list of table A, if I were to bump one, it would be that one because it has been done. We need to do it again, but if you did swapsies between account receivable open brackets debtors and bring LEP forward, simply because then in quarter 1 you have the most pressing ones that we know are having an impact or could have a potential impact on council's audit and governance. So I'd support what Councillor Gazzard and Councillor King have said, and Councillor Hookway, of course. Thank you.
Perfect. Alistair, is there any unintended consequences around us swapping those two?
Not from our point of view. I guess the only one I would take into account is obviously the view of the relevant managers in those areas, just in case there are any operational pressures. But from our point of view, it's something we can certainly accommodate. I would also just take the view of Simon, as he is on this meeting and oversees obviously accounts receivable, in case there's any impact from pushing those back.
Thank you. Simon, any thoughts?
No, I'm happy with the suggestion put forward in terms of accounts receivable being pushed back. That'd be fine. And yeah, there's not a timing urgency issue on that one, so it could wait, as Councillor Hayward has suggested. I understand members wish to bring forward LED. It's just, I suppose, the pressure on LED while they're trying to open their facilities and an audit. But as long as we're aware of that, I'm sure Alistair can work with them as necessary.
Thank you. Did anybody want to raise any other parts around the recommendation? I'm just trying to tie this all together as one recommendation at the end. But hopefully somebody will propose. Councillor Gazard, I think you want to, yeah, there's the hand. I could see a finger pointing at the screen.
Yeah, no, I'm quite happy to move that proposal, Chair.
Thank you. So we've got the, just check I'm thinking it's correct. So we've got the Audit and Governance Committee approved the internal audit plan for 21-22 with the amendment of the accounts receivable being moved to Q3 and the LED being moved to Q1. And the Audit and Governance Committee approves the internal audit charter. Is someone happy to second those, please?
Yes, I'm happy to second. So.
Cool. I'm not sure who that was first. I want to say Councillor King, so I'm going to say it. On that basis, if we can, please vote using your ticks, crosses.
Okay, Chair, so that is carried unanimously with 7 votes. Thank you.
Thank you. And then on to agenda item 11, which is the internal audit plan progress for January 2021. And that's back with Alistair, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to confirm on that final agenda item, I'll update the rolling plan that will be on the members portal for you to see as well, so you can keep an eye on that. Okay. So moving down to our progress report. So I appreciate it was rather close between the two audit committees. So the previous update was at the end of January. This is your update report since then, so all the work that's been completed. When we came to write this report, there was just one audit that had moved to final, which was performance management, which was given reasonable assurance. That was looking at the overall performance management framework in place, how it aligned to your corporate priorities, and how accurate the information and data is that's underlining what information is being sent to senior management and members. So the good news is, from our point of view, there was nothing to report to you in terms of high significant corporate risks or any limited assurance opinions to bring to your attention. What I would bring to your attention, there were a couple of changes which we've already discussed, which was the LED review being pushed back. The decision-making review is also being pushed back at the request of the monitoring officer due to changes to the constitution, which would obviously have an impact on that review. So you may have picked up that review is scheduled for Q2 in next year's plan. The other things I would like to bring to your attention that to look out for is Council baseline assessment of maturity for fraud prevention. This review has now been finalised, but unfortunately missed the committee date for circulating it in this report. I will send you this information outside of the audit committee, and it will be uploaded to the members portal as well for you to see. The reason is, as an audit committee, you're responsible for overseeing counter fraud and corruption arrangements in place in the authority. And it's a review that kind of gives us a baseline of where we think the authority is with its counter fraud arrangements. And it's pertinent as members of the audit committee, you are aware of that assessment. There are some areas where there will be some additional work that need to be done on internal controls. And obviously that'd be something that we'll be picking up throughout 21-22, and obviously for you as an audit committee just to monitor progress on that. And I think that's it from me on this progress. I said it's a short progress report due to the timings between the two audit committees, but happy to take any questions that members have.
Thank you, Alistair. I'll pause for a second if there are questions. Councillor Gazard, I think, yep.
Sorry. Yeah, just for clarification, please. On page, forgive me, 69, where it's got quality of audit work, it says customer satisfaction questionnaire, and it says 95%, none received with the average performance. Does that mean that the authority have received no forms back filled in? Because would I be right in making the assumption this is to do with council house repairs, or is it to do with something else, please?
No, it's to do with something else. So every audit we undertake, we send out a feedback questionnaire to those managers and officers that were involved in the audit. It's feedback for us as an organisation, SWAP, to see where we can improve what we do. In terms of return rate, I think across the SWAP partnership, the return rate's not as high as we would like. What this is saying, given all the audits that we've completed, so the reviews that you see down here, we would have sent out a questionnaire against those reviews to the relevant managers to feedback on how well the audit went. And so what we were saying is we haven't received any back. As a company, we do recognise some issues in how the questionnaires go out, because we are conscious our questionnaires do tend to hit officers' spam folders as opposed to their inbox, which makes it harder to pick up. So we are, for next financial year, looking at how we send those out to do it a different way, using a different method, and just because we want the feedback to make sure that we're working as effectively as we can.
Thank you for that.
Great, thank you. We're only being asked to note the report. I don't know, I can see a clap from Councillor King, which I'm not sure is a hand. Or it is a hand now.
It was intended as a
everything.
hand, but I tend to applaud myself a bit much anyway. Yes, if you are getting a rather poor return, then it does suggest that the record of average performance is it's indeterminate. It should be weighted, I believe, according to the amount of returns you get. If you get just one person saying whoopee 5 stars and you put 5 stars in, it doesn't count for much. So is it possible to somehow qualify the returns of your questionnaires to accommodate that worry that I have?
Yes, yep. So when we do receive some, obviously we can confirm the numbers that we've received and sent out. So yeah, that's fine.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I can't see any more hands being raised as we're only being asked to note this report. We will move on to the next item, which is agenda item 12, the accounting policies approval. And I think that's back with John, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so having just approved the 1920 accounts, the accountancy team are already busy preparing for the approaching 2021 year end. There's already a lot of planning going into that, but part of that is it's seen as good practice to seek approval of the accounting policies that we'll be using in the production of those accounts. Again, it's a relatively short report itself, but it just provides a small amount of detail around the need to keep up with proper practice, requirement to give a true and fair view of the accounts and the financial position, and the need for our own policies to align and to be updated to reflect the code of practice. So in terms of the actual policies being proposed for 2021, the code of practice only had some very minor changes, so therefore the accounting policies being presented are staying the same for the coming year. It's been mentioned earlier in the meeting, but one change we had expected this year was the implementation of IFRS 16. But as you now know, this has now been pushed back. So that's also just detailed in the report. So yeah, happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anybody got any questions or happy to move that we? No, on that basis, I'm happy to move from the chair then that we approve the accounting policies for the 2020-21 statement of accounts. Please use your voting buttons accordingly.
Okay, for the benefit of those watching online, the vote is now taking place. And Chair, we have 7 votes for. That is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally on to agenda item 13, the Audit and Governance Forward Plan. Now, I've had a request from Democratic Services that where there's third parties named against items on the report that they confirm they are happy with those. So Jackson, I'll start with you. There's a couple of points, Grant Thornton all throughout 21-22. Are you happy with those against those relevant meetings and the bits that are deliverable by GT?
Yeah, so I had a quick conversation with John and team about this. So although our audit plan is showed for the next audit committee, which isn't now till July time, what I propose to do is once we've issued that, we'll circulate that to members prior to that meeting, but take it to that meeting for formal noting. Now, currently our audit findings report is scheduled for the November 2021 committee as per that work programme. The updated kind of regulations, audit accounts regulations, have suggested that the target date is the end of September for audited accounts. I think, given where we are now, and hopefully we'll get the 1920 accounts signed off in a week or so's time, we're behind on our planning. So I think that the November meeting is probably good to have it on now. If we can get it earlier, great. But given we're starting from a later position, it's going to take quite a lot of effort to catch that up this year, I think. So that I think that's more realistic. But we'll continue to update committee and obviously have conversations with Simon and John throughout the 2021 audit.
Thank you. Alistair, same question, please.
I think from our point of view, everything is in the right place and absolutely fine.
Thank you. So has anybody got any thoughts, comments on the forward plan? Or again, I believe we're just happy to note that, and on that basis, I'm slightly stalled. Councillor Gazzard, I think I see a hand about to go up. I see a finger at a screen.
Give myself away, don't I? Yeah, it's just for clarity on the forward plan. We did agree that there would be an audit regarding council vehicles. I can't appear to see that in the forward plan. So has that been taken out?
Good point. That would come through swap doing. Alistair, I think you wanted to, you want to come on that item.
Clarify on that. So it is an audit that's in the audit plan for next year. It's in for Q2. So we'll be looking to commence that around July. So there will be an audit around fleet management. So information will be fed back. And I'd also just highlight, we have got a follow-up audit scheduled in Q2 on section 106 as well, that hopefully we can try and get completed so we can provide that update as well on that July agenda.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think, yeah, so they'll sit as sort of underneath the quarterly updates as opposed to being an explicit item. On that basis then, I will bring the meeting to an end and like to thank everyone, including members of the public watching online, for taking part. However, can I remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being recorded for the public or going live, and until then your comments will be live to the public.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, officers. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.